It's all real.
Sure it is. Sure it is.
No facade there.
Story just popped up today before we recorded this today that it was something we knew was coming, and for some folks it's a little bittersweet, but for some folks it's going to make them happy, literally, and will also it's good news for the property owner, and that's of course TNT Cartways is being purchased by an Arkansas company that does marijuana distribution.
Did they get incentives?
Not medical.
Not medical, just
No.
good old straight old recreational.
Yeah.
Straight weed.
Yeah.
Straight weed. So
Did they get incentives?
I don't know if they got any incentives from Marion County or not. I don't think that's the kind of thing. If I know how politics work over there, I don't think that's the thing they would give incentives for.
Okay.
But that means that building is going to go where the cart track is, and it's a historic track. I mean, ABC Wide World of Sports, gazillion years ago, did some features there. It is. I mean, I've raced on it. Lots of people have done it have raced recreationally. Some people have professionally raced.
I broke the flag guy's leg over there.
Did you really?
I sure did. Not a claim to fame, but I'll use it.
Wow.
Yeah. My gas pedal stuck. I say that.
Oh my God.
Okay,
I
was
have
young,
never done even go-karting. I think
What?
we've talked about this. We're going to
Oh, yeah.
end up doing a road trips with
Yeah.
Randy soon out to Scotty Skateland.
The fun spot.
Yeah.
Scotty's fun spot now.
Yeah.
So you guys will be in go-karts.
And I will be a virgin go-karter, and you will be a murder.
Don't hit the flag guy.
A murderer.
Yeah, I'm the murderer.
Don't hit the
but
flag guy.
so I think it's a sad day for people who have memories over there. But I think just knowing that it's not going to be vacant,
Right.
is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, the traders are selling the land, and they're going to put that there, and of course, it's their land. They should do with it what they want, and karting, I know, is still popular around here, but again, that's now the track. There's a dirt track out at the Adams County Speedway that, I mean, maybe they can do some races out there. Some people go over and race in Springfield now. But what I thought was, especially since the fact that it is a marijuana distributor, we're going to get into the whole, I'm going to go over there to get my cheap gas, I'm going to get my cheap smokes, and now I'm going to get my cheap weed.
Well, that's when you said it's a sad thing, and I didn't kind of register the whole closing of the I was wondering, is it a sad thing for the dispensaries here in Quincy? Because I mean,
it's going to hurt them.
It's
going to take a chunk out.
I don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure Illinois, cannabis tax is around a 33%, and then Missouri's is at a 5%.
It
Don't
could
quote
be.
me on
like
that,
everything.
but
It's like
or-
gas. It's like everything else.
Or people
Yes.
could be too high to drive over there, so they just go to their favorites. Could be.
I don't know, or you just don't. Yeah.
Because I said it will make some people happy, and I said really happy, like
Yeah,
feeling
for that
good.
5%.
Yeah. Well, just the fact that you're actually consuming the product as well.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean,
So-
I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't either.
Whatever.
Bobby, tell us all about it.
Sorry, y'all are barking up the wrong tree
Yeah.
there. So, but again, I think that when we're talking about economic development, and we've got a really special edition of Muddy River News coming up this week that Ashley and Brittany kind of put together to talk about the pros and cons of the 54th and Broadway development, and. I think when you mentioned the tax incentives.
It was not
So-
so much about the development, but the tax incentive.
Yes,
was
the
that-
tax incentive
Sure,
to
sure.
be used for the
Again,
development.
I think everybody's for
Sure.
developing that area. It's just the question of, do we need a tax?
How do we do it?
Yeah, to
incentive?
subsidize competition for businesses that already exist. So, but again, we also had we had a panel of proponents, we had a panel of opponents, and I thought it was a great discussion. I thought Ashley did a really good job.
Nice.
Brittany kind of produced it and wrangled people around to come and have them sit at this table, and the city. We had a couple guys from the county, but they really weren't here in their county capacity. They were just here because they support the project. Then we had some business guys who have voiced their opposition. The city says they're in the middle of of negotiating on this whole project, so they really didn't want to have a dog in this fight, and I can understand that. But again, I think that when we look at these things, this is what, and David has been driving this point home all day, this is what we should be doing. Instead of everybody getting on their own keyboard or getting on their own whatever and calling each other names and saying each other stupid, they should all come and sit at tables like this and talk about their differences and try to work things out. And I hope as a country we're not past that point. but sometimes it sure seems like it. But again, that's the job of a mayor. That's the job of a county board chairman. That's the job of a GREDF director. Or senators, representatives. That's their job, is to bring two sides together and say, how can we make this? How can we meet in the middle? How can we make this palatable? Because we've seen projects that, again, whether you're for them or against them, we've seen things that have been not halfway down the road. We've seen some things that have gone down the road, and then eventually we're supposed to go around in circles, and we spend the money, and it's dead.
Look at you.
And again, I'm not
Bazinga.
proposing or opposing the roundabout. I'm just saying money was
Communication.
spent on that, and then they decide, okay, never mind. Instead of having the conversation, everybody sitting together. Now, the county folks will tell you, well, the city agreed to it, then the city backed out. Okay, fine. But still, we need more dialogue in a way that people can just sit down and hash things out.
Do
And
you
we
think-
just don't get that.
Okay, so I do think that sometimes, and I'm hoping, this is produced from this, that the commenters, because this will be posted on our social media, and then the commenters on the social media, instead of just reading the headline, they actually watch the video.
Sure.
And then I think I do want you
Make
to
your
comment.
make
I
your own
want-
opinion.
I mean, let's face it, they're going to shit all over it anyway, regardless.
No
That's just what
one's
they
gonna
do.
solve anything in the comments, but I feel
Nope.
like if you're gonna comment, maybe watch the video, educate yourself. This was extremely
It
educating.
was phenomenal.
So educate yourself on the matter before you say, "Hey, we need an Olive Garden," or as
We don't
someone
need an Olive
who
Garden.
lives or works on the east side of Broadway, we need more restaurants. Well, learn about what this entails before
Just
you
watch.
say we need.
Just watch it, because there were great points made on both sides,
And then
I
comment.
Yeah, and I think everybody has a right to an opinion, but I think it should be a well-informed opinion.
Yeah.
And to your point, Bob, I do think it's the city and the county board's job to come together and have these conversations before it becomes a media frenzy, right? So I'm not saying that Muddy River News doesn't do a phenomenal job of bringing these topics to light, but do I necessarily think that it should be the only place where people hear it or get a chance to come together? No.
No.
I think it should happen before.
Yeah,
And I
that's
think that
that's what I was saying.
yeah, if they did it properly, the county and the city coming together to even to hash it out, like you said, but also to negotiate. If they can't get on the same page on one side or the other, negotiate something so that it doesn't become a shit show in the minds of the community, because then we all lose faith in our local governments. And I think that is the downfall that no one wants to see. They're there for a reason. They speak, their voice speaks for the rest of us. And I think that that's very, very important not to lose sight of that. But also on those representative side, keep that in mind when you're running for reelection. Make sure that you are speaking the voice of your constituents. And I think that's really, really important.
We elect these officials to speak for us, and again, a representative, an alderman, an alderwoman, whoever is going to have people on both sides of the issue. That's when they have to sit down and say, look, I made this decision, here's why I made this decision, when they have a cranky constituent call. And because you're not going to please everybody, trust me. So I think it's just important, but it's important to at least listen. It's important to at least have those discussions. And again, whether they're in committee meetings or whether they're just, hey, let's go grab
Open
lunch
forum.
and talk
Yeah.
or whatever, just to say, let's figure out how we can move the ball on this. And, when you even heard, from both sides, there's wiggle room to be had, I think, if taxes are are formulated a certain way. And some guys are just no incentives. That's great, but I think there is a case where some incentives could be warranted if their case is proven. But again, I think that's when we're talking about bringing in new things, different things. Again, I think the 54th Street development would be much more palatable if it was 2 retailers and 2 restaurants, maybe. That's not the whole. I mean, 4 restaurants makes everybody go, "What the heck?" And again, I think there's some negotiating and some wiggle room in here. I just hope that they can all just kind of sit down and figure that out.
So our next guest, you said something about the alder people listening, and I think she does a really good job of
Yeah,
it.
I'm excited to talk to her. 'Cause
I know on firsthand because I've talked to her where she said, I thought this one way, and then I listened, and
Yeah.
changed my mind.
Which
So
I think is really
that is
important.
unheard of. I
It's
feel
really
like on
important.
our council panel sometimes.
There's a difference between being wishy-washy and flip-floppy and legit
Listening.
listening and
Yes.
saying, "Oh yeah, you're right. I should do something
Yeah.
different."
Exactly.
Because there are people who just, but
Mm-hmm.
then other people are like, "Oh, I didn't know this. I didn't know that. Oh yeah, we should maybe do this instead."
and just being
nothing wrong with that.
open-minded is one of the best qualities, I think, for
Also,
an
tough
alderman.
job.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to hear her perspective on how things have been going. Also, because I've, kind of tried to be
Yep.
in it. I can't wait to hear
Dip your toe.
how things are going
Yeah.
and if I dodged a bullet or if I'm like, God, I need to do it again. But I think overall there is something to be said for no one wants Quincy to die. It's just how we go about it, and I think there's a responsible way. There's also we were talking after we wrapped up there are certain viewpoints that kind of differ, but I think if they all sat down in a room together, they would be able to come up with a very viable solution because every single one of those fellas wants the best for Quincy, and that's obvious. And I think if we all got together, if there was a way to get every Quincyan and every Adams County person in a room together, eventually we would all agree at least on one thing, and that is we want the best for everyone in Quincy and Adams County. Right?
Absolutely.
I
Yes,
agree.
absolutely.
All right.
Looking forward to talking to our next guest. Thank you also for making the conversation happen about the 54th Street development.
That'll air on Sunday.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of being kind of the facilitator, but it wasn't me. These fine folks made it happen, came up with the questions, made the conversation what it is, and I really hope everybody listens because it is it's so important to listen and have your voice heard on what you want to happen for Quincy and the Adams County.
Totally
Right?
agree.
'Kay.
Absolutely. All right, we'll be right back. A&B Properties is Quincy's largest apartment rental company with hundreds of units available. They offer short-term and long-term rentals with 1 up to 4 bedroom apartments. A&B Properties meets the needs of its tenants with care, compassion, and a quality of service that exceeds expectations. A&B Properties also has a convenient tenant app for you to do your payments or make repair requests. Give them a call today. A&B Properties, 217-919-8080, Quincy.
The Liquor Booth is your home for a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits. The Liquor Booth has 2 locations in Quincy, 3520 Broadway and 1500 North 12th Street. The Liquor Booth, where it's always happy hour.
3 shots.
Hi.
Okay, you don't have to look at any camera.
I would probably
Yeah,
just rather
no,
look
you're
at
good.
you guys
Okay.
if you don't
All
care.
right. And we're here with the alderman of the hour. So, Kelly Mays, let me go ahead and start this out with asking you a question. Alderman, alderwoman, alderperson, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think it all just makes it really awkward. Like, why does it have to be awkward? I'm fine with being called alderman. No one really likes alderperson.
So such a weird word. It's like
Good for you.
older person. Like
Yeah.
you're not even real.
That's
you know?
what the state is kind of pushing. That's the technical term. No one likes it. So I'm good with alderman.
Good. I'm glad to know that because, okay, let's just go ahead and throw it out there for anyone who has never listened before in the past. I ran for alderman. I don't even remember what year. And people were like, do you want to be called alderwoman? I was like, disgusting. If you call me alderwoman, I swear I'm dropping out. But it was very awkward to me as well because it almost like pinpointed the fact that I was in fact a woman because this terminology has been there for years. So it was almost like doing the opposite of good. It was like, oh, well, we want to point out that she's a woman,
Right. You stand out as
Yeah.
being different.
which I am and you are.
You are because you're the only one on the panel, right?
Right now, yep.
Really?
Yeah. That's a big deal, I feel
Yeah.
like.
Okay, so
big
just-
deal, and I'm sorry for you.
Okay, so how long have you been on the board?
3 years.
Okay, good for you. So when you started this venture, were you approached?
I was. So I was appointed and I was approached to ask if I would do it. I never had thought about it. Honestly, I didn't even really follow local politics that closely.
How?
Interesting. Very,
But my
very
husband did.
interesting.
Okay.
And I always I like to help people. That's my number one thing. I care about people. So if I could help someone, I don't work, so if I could answer my phone, call people back, I thought, oh, I could do that. I'll try it.
Heck yeah.
And then they did say, we really want you to run. And I did honestly say, I'm not going to commit to that right now because I don't know. If I don't like it, I'm not going to do it again. I knew it was a 2-year thing. But then I did run, and I do enjoy it.
Good.
Obviously, you wouldn't put that running behind it. You said I don't work, but you are working. Obviously, this
Well,
is
this
quite the
is-
job. How often does your phone ring?
Not that often.
Really?
No. It just depends on what's going on. A lot of emails. The main
Okay.
way people contact us is through email. But once in a while.
Do you hear from? So like you don't hear from constituents that often, as an alderman.
Right.
That's like kind of shocking to me because that was kind of the setback I always feel like with. Like when people are trying to entice me to do it,
Yeah.
I'm like, I am not answering.
Well,
my
so I
phone
think it kind of
24/7.
depends on the ward. So you're Ward 3.
Right.
Do you mind if I ask you who approached you?
To
run?
Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor.
Okay. Because I do think that says a lot about his, faith in you and what he wants out of your commitment. But you went in being appointed and then you ran again, which says a lot about you as a dedicated member of this community, which let's go ahead and say kudos to you, sister. So I know that it's not an easy run. You have to like knock doors and do things.
Well, thankfully,
and,
no one ran against me.
Oh,
Really?
In either election. No. And honestly, so when
Huh.
I ran, my mom got really sick, and then she actually passed away.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And so if I would have had to do that, I wouldn't have.
You wouldn't have.
No.
Yeah.
So it was kind of just a blessing that no one ran against me because I didn't do one single thing.
Okay, so do you mind if I ask if you ran on what party?
Republican.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find that when you're sitting there that you still kind of fall into, because I know how many Republicans and Democrats are on the board? Do you know?
I think there's 9. No, there used to be 11 and 3. No, or
Wow.
10 and 4. I think it's 10 and 4.
It's pretty.
Okay. Pretty
Republican.
Yes.
based.
Okay.
But you wouldn't know it.
Well, I think there are a lot of decisions that are made based on, and I'm not saying this is, so I've always said that I don't necessarily think that the two-party system really applies to local government.
Agreed, yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Very, very true.
Do you feel like it seeps in at the most unknown, like kind of inconspicuous times where you're like, shit, there are situations that they ask you to vote on something and you're like, well, I wouldn't consider that Republican, but I guess now that I am.
I mean, so people will really try hard to persuade you how they want you to vote, and people will throw out, if you're a Republican, this is like political suicide if you don't do this.
Sure.
But I just try to ignore those things.
Yes,
Well,
girl.
this is part of the question that I had. So my husband and I were talking last night about aldermen and how they represent their constituents. So are you voted, do people, do the Quincyans, do you think, vote for you so then that they expect you to be their voice? Or do you think they vote and then want you to carry their voice? So, I guess what I'm saying is, do you stick to whatever it is, your Republican values, your whatever it is that you ran on, your values that you ran on, even if it goes against the constituent? Because the constituent did vote for you based on those things.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm very conservative, so I would try to lean towards that. And yes, there are some things that I wouldn't change my mind on if people, because that's the other thing is only certain people are going to reach out to you. And so
That was one of my questions too. How many of the people, of the few that do reach out to you, are the same people?
not actually that many.
Really? You don't have the
Sometimes.
same recurring?
Sometimes.
Okay.
But you don't know what their political standing is when they reach out to you.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So you could get tons of emails about a certain thing and then, they might not agree with you and that's fine. So I'm not going to vote how they say because they emailed me.
Yes.
If it's something that I believe in. I think first and foremost as an alderman, you have to do what you think is right. That's what I do. I do what I think is right. If I don't know, then I'm willing to listen. Like on this current thing, like I told you.
Oh man, that's what we introduced
We're
you as.
talking about the development?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
like just the fact that she's willing to listen.
So I
is
was a very strong
huge.
proponent of it because I like restaurants.
Yeah, me too.
And, you know, selfishly, I want these new restaurants to come. And it sounded really good. When we get an idea presented to us, it's presented from the city's side. This is why it would be good. And they are good at persuading what
You should
you
be
should
voting
think
for.
and why
Mhm.
this is a good thing. And I agree. Everything seems great. And then a couple of people called me, some business owners, and people showed up at the meeting, and I was like, this makes a lot of sense. Like, now I don't think I'm going to support it.
You're like, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
for
I
sure.
want to know
Yeah, I
what
love
you
that.
think. And people always say, why am I calling, like, or I'm sorry for calling you. I don't want to bother you. And I'm like, we don't know what people think about unless they call and tell us. Like,
This is my job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, please call me if you have an opinion about something. People will tell me all the time, let's get together and talk. I'm like, yes, let's, because I don't know what anyone thinks unless they tell me. So after the meeting on Monday, like, I try really hard to not let the city know for sure how I'm going to vote too early because
Smart woman.
yeah,
Because they'll try to coerce.
well, no, because I
Yes.
don't want to lie, obviously. Like, so I'm not going to say I'm going to vote yes. If I tell someone, like, I'm going to vote yes for sure, then I want to vote yes because I told them that. But what
you
if
just
I
don't wanna be a
change my
liar.
mind?
Yeah.
So I want the right to be able to change my mind because you never know. And that's what I've learned is on Monday night, you never know. You never know what's going to get tabled. You never know who's showing up. We're not really informed more than the general public.
And also, that's not a woman thing. That's a human thing. So I don't want people to think that, you know, just
Women
because
are better
she's the
at it.
woman. I mean, we are a little more open to a different dialogue. Like, we don't just get our mindset, right? I think I'm sticking my foot in a shallow grave
No,
here.
I'm
but,
agreeing with
but I
you.
don't want
There's
it
a
to
reason
seem
why
like,
the world
well,
goes round. It's because men and women are different.
Yes. And I don't want it to seem like I'm pimping her because, you know, she has said that I don't want to feel like if I change my mind, I'm in the wrong. That's not a sign of weakness. That's a sign
No.
of logic and intelligence. And I want other people to hear that.
And
Sorry.
willingness
Yeah.
to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't want to say I'm voting yes. I want to reserve the right to change my mind and keep an open mind. And they know that, so they kind of know that I'm a little bit on the
You're the
fence a
flip
lot.
card.
Because
You're the
I
one
don't
that they're
know
coming
them.
Wild card, baby.
You're the one
That's
that
what we
they're coming
need.
after, though, to persuade one way or the other.
But
like
it's-
anyone would.
It's awesome that they don't know which way to
Yeah.
persuade her because they don't even know. Keep those wild cards private. I love that.
You said something about how a lot of times things are presented to you guys by the city. And if the city wants something, the city will persuade something. So I hate to beat a dead horse, but I'm beating it.
Beat it, baby.
Do you think that the TIF crowd was a fair survey of the way Quincyans feel about the subject? Ashley and I went to that meeting, and I know we've said a couple of times that it was a secret meeting. It wasn't secret.
It wasn't
but-
secret.
But it was not very well put out there, and then I feel like we were in a fart chamber. And this same opinion came up over and over and over again, and it's kind of strange to me because we are all humans and we don't always agree that the only people that were in attendance for the representation of that were proponents of it. So I guess my question again is, like, do you think that the way that the TIF crowd survey was presented, that represented all of Quincyans?
I mean, I don't know. I didn't go to that. If that's what you're talking about, like a private TIF or the not private. but
The city meeting. No,
that
yeah, I know.
publicly posted meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think in general, most people don't really care about the TIF, and that's what you find is
Like they care, or that
The
they
general
don't know. They don't
General
understand.
out of
General
40,000 people don't give a
do
shit
not
about the
care.
TIF.
Yeah.
Because they don't know, though. Like, wouldn't you care about something that's taking, like, or I'm not saying taking, but, like, wouldn't you care? Everyone cares about their own money and their tax-paying dollars, I would
also
think.
think
Sometimes.
the thing about the TIF is most people don't understand how it works.
Neither do I. I've been in this for months.
I don't know
and
how
months
she
and months,
doesn't
and
understand.
I mean,
We've
I
talked about-
understand. No, I understand like the overview, but I think once you get past that, it's so much work to delve into, and I think that's why it's so easy to kind of get people on board with it, is because it's like, well, you just don't understand. And when
Well,
you
so,
do dig in, it's like,
the very
you don't
basic
understand.
of it is the taxes are frozen.
Mhm.
So everyone's getting the same amount of tax. And then all the extra tax the city gets to keep. So why would the city not want to keep the extra money that would have went to the schools in the park district? That's why the county and the schools and all of them have to agree, because they're the ones giving up the money for the future. The city gets to keep it, and they get to put it in that area.
You just said it differently than I've ever heard before.
And why wouldn't the city want to keep it?
Of course.
For the city, it's just a no-brainer. That's what I think. I understand why people don't want lots of TIFs and they're long. So there are some things to consider. But in general, from the city's perspective, and also from the taxpayers, this is just my opinion, why wouldn't the city want to keep it? Our city needs the money. The streets, like that area needs a lot of help for those business owners and the people that live there. So if they get to keep that extra money and pour it in there, even if it's to fix a street or a sidewalk or whatever needs it, and the city wouldn't have gotten basically any of that money. But I think the general public,
I totally agree
doesn't
with you
care.
on this with the whole like fixing the street and the sidewalk and everything. I think the thing that gets sticky icky is when you're putting that money towards personal pet projects. And I hate saying, well, I don't hate it. I love it.
It is what it
It is what it is.
so they say
say
that's
infrastructure.
because that's how you have to grow the property values. They're not
Okay.
going to grow without people fixing up the building.
But are we also growing property values in a dilapidated area and then housing people out of that area? You know, is how I look at it, because
like people that can't afford to live there anymore?
yeah, I mean, like you're renting and then so your property
What's it
value
called?
went up.
The EAV.
What is
No.
called? Oh, the bad word.
Gentrification. Thank you, Bobby.
It's the bad word.
Gentrification. I
don't think it's a bad
Yeah.
word either. It's real. It's real.
It is what it
and
is.
It
It's
is
kind of
what
factual.
it
It's
is.
just people have to decide what they want.
But it's kind of I don't know. At the same time, it's gross.
So you're against the TIF?
Yeah, I was really, I don't
Sorry,
believe.
I don't know.
Yeah, I voiced my opinion till I was blue in the face about that one. It's the same thing kind of with the 54th Street tax incentive. I believe that if you're going to do something, do it on your own. Now, if the TIF is strictly for infrastructure, like you were talking about, the sidewalks, the streets, then I'm for
do
it.
it.
Let's focus on something.
That's hyper-focusing.
But then my next question is, if we're focusing on the worst, why are we not focusing on the northwest quadrant of town?
Well, there's not enough businesses there.
So it's the business aspect that like
That's
really.
It's the
the property values
recouping.
are
It's
gonna go
recouping
up.
the property value, which is the only place I kind of understand. But I do agree with you when it's like, I think, so we were talking about the 54th Street development. I'm not saying they shouldn't have something, but I don't think that we should be paying for a whole fill. I think that should be between the developer and the buyer. So I think there's room to discuss these types of things, but when it comes down to it, no one knows that these conversations are happening because maybe they don't give a shit, or maybe they don't want to come in and sound like assholes or whatever the hell it is. But I think there can be like a level of things that isn't, well, we're going to go from zero to hero, and you either have to be on board with hero or you're a zero. And I think that's kind of the way we approach things now.
It's a worded argument.
It's very monotonous anymore that it's like, well, if you're not on board with this hero level argument, you are definitely not on board with growth. And I think there could be, as we talked about before, if we all sat down together and said, yeah, we're not opposed to this 100%, but let's talk about levels of help and what's necessary versus what's plausible, what's doable, so that people aren't paying more and more and more for not seeing anything in their area. And I think that's kind of where we stand. It's like, well, we're not, I use 6th Street because I work down here, but not many people do, so they may not care about it. But how do we get it to a point where it's like, yeah, you guys should do this? And how do we get behind that?
Well, you said bringing everyone at the table. You can't there's not a table big enough to bring everyone to it.
I disagree.
Unless it's technology. You said something about a Survey Monkey.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Easy peasy. Lemon
where
squeezy.
it's at, where it comes from. Yeah, you get to hear directly from your constituents, and I think it's somewhat simple. Then you wouldn't have to answer all these emails. I mean, I'm sure being an alderman, you have to make it personal. I think if you had an alderman that disliked you and say ignored your phone calls or text messages, that's kind of BOGO.
Is this personal,
No,
Brittany?
no.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
just
okay.
saying that's not cool, or that's not fair. Like if your aldermen won't even talk to you, and then who knows if like you have some. I know like that's the basis of election, like competence. Like competence. Are you answering your people's emails? Are you ignoring them? That's probably a lot of the basis of election, rather than the values that you stand for. It's whether or not you do your job well, because we don't have term limits and people just go and go and go, because half the time I think Quincyans are complicit in, well, I don't have to have my say so. But again, so that Survey Monkey thing is what
Yeah.
I'm getting at. That I think is a somewhat of a solution. I do believe that aldermen, like I said, need to be personable.
Sure.
But like that Survey Monkey thing would be like,
But I want to hear your
Representation.
opinion on kind of your experience from year one to now. And I'll go ahead and throw this out there because you are the only woman, right? And I want to know, is it difficult? Do you not give a shit? Is it based on your loyalties within your ward? Is it like, how do you go in when you walk into this meeting? What is your what's your mindset? You're like, listen, I'm not going to be mowed down by these motherfuckers. Right? I want to hear it.
Well, it's changed at the beginning. I mean, at the beginning, I was just, I need to learn, listen. I mean, there's a lot to learn. It's a big learning curve, like figuring it out. Now, I do try to keep an open mind. I do try to ask a couple aldermen that I respect that have been doing it longer than me, what do you think about this? Or what are you planning to do? Because I value their opinion. Sometimes you really don't know what to do. But I just try to go in there. I mean, I thought when I started, we would all discuss things and know in advance.
Yeah, you got totally hosed on that one,
And then
sister.
when I got in there, I'm like, no one even ever talks to each other. No one has a clue what's going on.
or there's like buddy on two.
Well, there's got to be
and
clicks.
then
It's like a
two.
freaking lunch table,
Let's,
right?
Let's say you're really passionate about something. Okay, let's say you're passionate about this TIF. Mm-hmm. You want to
Sit with the
know-
people.
Yeah, and no, what do you think? And what are you going to do? And instead, you just show up at the meeting and you have no idea what anyone else thinks about anything. I mean, yes, could I call them all? But, we don't really have that much spare time or get paid to do this.
But also that kind of
That's a really good
negates
thing.
your own opinion.
And that's not my job,
Yeah.
is to figure out what they're all doing. But it's just so odd to me, if you are really passionate about something and you could make a difference and you just show up and you guys
Why
just
are you
all
not
vote and
reaching
see
out?
what happens.
Ahead of time.
Yeah.
It is kind of neat though that
Be awesome if it was a blind vote
but
all
that,
the time.
that it's
Just come
not
in.
happening. Like what she just said. I mean, as much as I think, you should be well versed on whatever it is that you're coming into and hearing people's opinions and not being surprised. It's kind of nice knowing that stuff isn't happening behind closed doors. Or, no offense, maybe it's just not happening with you.
Maybe.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that.
There's groups
whatever
of people
happens
that I'm
at the
sure-
table.
100%.
Well, yeah. Sorry, you're not in that clique, Kelly.
I think that's
independent, Kelly.
amazing. I think that's amazing. So when I ran as quote unquote independent, and there were people. It just got really intense, and I was like, I didn't realize that so many people were out for their own good. And I'm not dogging, because I know it takes a lot of effort to be on, the city council. But it was just it would be really, really cool, as if we stated before, just come together and make sure you're doing the right thing and not just your own
Power trip?
thing, right? Your own ego deal, I guess.
Well, that's what I mentioned
or-
about the term limits. I'm not trying to dog anybody, but man, Like some of these aldermen this is their life. And I mean, I'm glad that it's their life, but part of it, they've made it a little bit too much of their life. And it turns into a power trip. I have not seen that with you because obviously your
Well, I'm
life.
3 years in.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but like your life is outside of this. You have a family.
Right.
Um,
I do think there's some value in the people that have been there a long time, honestly, because they really know what they're doing. They remember the history. They refer back to stuff. I don't know anything about that. And sometimes even some of the people in the city come and go, like the leadership roles. And so I think it's nice to have a mix. I think it's good to have some people that have been doing it a while, and then it's good to have some new people come in with new perspectives and ideas. But if it was all new, like, the mayor was trying to get the whole,
You're right.
Just tossing balls in the air.
Nope,
We
you're
have
right,
no clue.
actually.
the whole,
like-
police
Force,
and fire
yeah.
commission. He wanted all new, and I just said, I don't see how that's what's best. Imagine if we had 14 new aldermen. That would be scary.
It would be a shit show.
It once, but that's not how government
I know, but
works.
there's 7 and 7, and it's good to mix things up. But I do think the ones that have been there a while bring value in that. I do.
I like your opinion or your pushback on that. I think that, like you said, term limits because of. I look at so the presidential is if that's 8 years.
You're looking at Sleepy Joe.
Well, but if that's 8 years, anything under that should follow suit. I mean, why would I don't want to say the bottom, but because it's not the bottom. Local is the most important in my opinion. But why would that take different
I think
precedence
as
over?
as rules.
But she's right. I
as
like
rules
her.
change and technology changes. It's good not to have a quote unquote good old boys club. Because they aren't really up on it. And also with Quincy, you have a lot of our demographic is older. So then you have the same people voting for the same thing because it's what's comfortable. And that's kind of what Hincamper and Austin were talking about. It's then you have the status quo. It's you're not going to grow, but then it has to come down to your constituents. Do you want it to grow? Because our constituents should speak, right? Do we want it to grow or do we want it to stay the same? And honestly, you can flip it by saying if every voter in Quincy or even the majority doesn't want it to grow, then all these giant business owners who want to grow it can go elsewhere and grow somewhere elsewhere, right? So it's not you have to kind of listen. I understand that it's a little taboo to say that you don't want a place to grow, but it's how you grow it and in the matter of how it's growing and also in your city leadership, if they're comfortable with these things and how do they have these conversations to make sure that they're listening to their constituents? How do they make sure that they're not, stepping on the values that made Quincy what it is? I don't know.
That's the big thing. What is growth? What is growth? And I want to ask you that. So what is growth? Is it population? Is it number of businesses? I will go ahead and insert my opinion before you answer. But my idea of growth is quality of life. And I think that is the incentive that we need to bring people here on, not money, but hey, this is an quality of life, awesome place to live. Why is it an awesome place to live? Because we are a community with the Q. I will keep that hashtag
community.
forever. Once we start deterring or using not local businesses is when we demolish that community. And that's what makes Quincy different. I believe it was Alderman Eric Intrep said, well, everyone else is doing it in regards to incentives. When somebody asks, well, why? Well, everyone else is doing it. And that's the great argument of we're not everyone else. We are Quincy and we are a community. And I think that, I don't know. I don't know what is your idea of growth?
Well, a couple things. So one is I'm not from Quincy. I didn't grow up here.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I might be the only alderman who didn't.
Where did you grow?
What?
Yeah, I know. This is news to me.
I grew up in Byron, Illinois, which is up by Rockford. I mean, I'm from the state.
Yeah.
My husband grew up here. So what I'm passionate about is people that didn't grow up here, because this is kind of a little bit of a cliquey town.
Mm-hmm.
And
Amen. Yeah.
And a lot of times I've heard so many people that move in here and don't like it. And like, I think I'm not interested in growth. Like, I don't really care how many people we get. I know there's a whole campaign to see how many people we can get to move here. And if we noticed, our numbers went down a little bit. I think we need to make it better for the people who live here. Like, the people that live here want to stay and like it.
hug her? Oh my gosh. Would you say Quincy first?
I love saying that.
Yeah, I just feel like I almost got tears to my eyes.
And it's not just, like she said, it doesn't have to be born and raised.
No.
You're Quincy. You
Right.
are Quincy.
Well-
you are so Quincy. Like, I hope you know that. Like, when you just said, I'm not from here.
But the most negative feedback I've ever gotten is you all are so cliquey, it's impossible to get in with you. So,
Well-
A of all, thank you for sticking it out.
Yes.
B of all, what advice
Hard
would
to
you
make
give?
friends here, honestly.
Well,
when
you
you're
got
not
one in
from
me,
here.
sister.
Me too now.
Everyone knows everyone.
Yeah.
And you don't. And most people don't really care that you don't.
How did you come here? What
Well, my
brought you here?
husband's from here.
Okay.
So,
So how have you got to know people outside of the...
Or have you?
yeah. Well, I joined Quincy Service League right away, and I met a lot of people through that, through work, when my kids were little. I mean, I've lived here 20 years, so now I know a lot of people. My
Still, 20
church-
years is nothing
Yeah. Yeah.
compared to 42.
Yeah,
I mean,
Right.
it's really
I mean,
nothing,
I go
yeah.
places with my husband. He always knows people everywhere. I don't. And
Is that awkward since you're the alderman and he's not? And, like, you're having to...
You're like
I bet-
shaking
I bet-
hands and kissing babies,
I
and he's
bet
like,
she
"Who
kinda
the
likes
hell?"
it.
people don't even know I'm alderman sometimes. You know, obviously people don't pay attention to the news. I was talking to a lady for a while, and she was talking about this 54th development, and I said, by the way, do you know I'm an alderman?
She was like, "Huh? There's a lady in
Let
the
you know that
in the
before you
council."
keep going.
Yeah.
In case.
You say something.
Don't
that-
say something that you're gonna wanna
that's when
retract.
You say, feed it to me. Let me hear the tea.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So, okay, 20 years. Can I ask you about, so 20 years ago, what have you seen good, bad, and ugly coming
so
from
before
then?
I moved here, for a little while, I lived in Chicago, like downtown.
Okay.
So when I came here, I was like, oh boy.
Culture shock, baby.
They don't have lifts here.
Yeah. Well, that was way before those
Okay.
days. But it was like,
They don't
you
have
know,
taxis here.
we didn't have like restaurants. That was a huge thing, is restaurants. And I know people love the local
Restaurants, fast food, both.
Mostly just restaurants, like
Okay.
chains or just stuff you're familiar with. And that's why I still think it's important. Like, I was so excited we got a Target, because that's what people recognize and they're
Gravitate
used
towards.
to. Like, stuff that if they're not from here, they're going to say, oh, they have a Target. And maybe they want to stay more than if we didn't, which
Yeah.
we haven't. So mainly like just stuff you're familiar with. And the restaurants here are great, but if you didn't grow up eating at them, maybe
You're
Yeah,
like,
like-
oh, I'm about to get bugs in my food. But you won't anywhere here.
No.
But you
They're
never
all
know.
good, but it's just different when this is not where you grew up.
Never dogging. It's always my favorite. But I don't think very many people from out of town recognize or would be familiar with a pizza and Mexican.
Ah, yeah.
We have
Exactly.
two of those. They're like, wait,
Awkward.
are you putting, wait, what?
Yeah.
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 And
Italian
I
and
think,
what we
Mexican.
do in the
Chicago
community.
and Rockford, they have some of the best pizza anywhere, I think. And that's where I grew up. So, you know, I don't love the pizza places here.
I bet.
honestly.
I hear
I
that.
totally understand.
I hear that a lot from like the out of town people. I will say I have heard, and I won't even say like what it is, but there are multiple pizza places that are not like the pizza that you're accustomed to here. It's whatever. What is it called? Like real pizza? I don't know. Like deep
Chicago
dish,
pizza.
Chicago pizza.
Chicago pizza.
Yeah.
Blue Malnati's, baby.
Yes. Yeah, there are going to be 2 new options. I've heard.
Ah.
Yeah.
All right. So, Kelly, a couple questions for you. One, if you had to ask someone, or if someone was considering coming to Quincy, what would you say?
I mean, I love it here. I would definitely recommend. I love that it's a big town that feels like a small town. Where I live obviously on the north side of town. Like, I could walk to Target basically, and it's just so convenient.
Yeah.
Like, it's everything that you need or want close by, and you don't need the rest.
Safe?
Really. Oh yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's safe.
Okay. Second question, and I'll keep this short. Anyone wanting to be involved in their local government, what would you say?
I think more people should, definitely. I think I've heard you guys talk about this before, where, because I've thought this,
Now wait.
which is funny, because you've said, if I give my opinion, people will sometimes say you should run, and you think, but I'm not the one running, it's your job. But I think that all the time, you should run. Not that they really should, but like, if you are passionate, get involved.
Yeah.
Like, you can do it.
I agree.
I mean, I don't have any specific background or anything. I mean, I'm thankful I can do this, but anyone can.
Yes.
And anyone can get involved. And we really need, like you said, if you don't want people that have been aldermen forever to keep doing it,
Well,
run against them.
That's why I was also thinking, I'm like, I'm going to take back my term limits thing, because you just said, I didn't have anyone even running against me. So we can't even get people to run.
It's
so
true.
why would we take back
So,
term limits?
I've been
you know?
alderman 3 years, and there's 2 in the 3rd ward, and I've had 3 aldermen with me. Because
So-
they quit.
So here's what I would say. I don't think anyone can do it. So I'll go ahead and push back on you for a little bit on that. I applaud you for putting your foot in the ring. I applaud
takes
you
a
for it takes
wherewithal.
a really strong person, not only to run but to win. And then to go in and say, I'm not going to let you influence my decision on a daily basis with your preconceived notions or your preconceived conversations. So I applaud you for everything that you're doing, not just as a woman, but as an alderman, as a Quincy. You're not a native, but
You're
I'm
a
gonna
Quincean.
consider you're a Quincean, and I'm going to consider you that. And yeah, I thank you for everything that you're doing. I thank you for coming here and talking to us. And I would just say, keep it up. You're evidently doing good things, and I hope that we don't ever scare you away. How's that? Right? Because it's only the matter of how you perceive people around you, and if you perceive yourself a part of this, you are a part of this. And if you ever want to hang out, I'm here, sister. Yeah.
Her household looks a lot or sounds a lot like yours. I don't know it because last question. The not to be like the least, but your family. I watched you walk in last night to Gabe McLean's restaurant. We ran into each other accidentally, like the day before.
Shout it
the
out,
street
the
party.
Silver Dollar, baby.
Yeah, go Silver Dollar.
Yeah.
And it was, she had quite a crew with her.
Yeah, you got
I'm
family in town.
assuming
But I
it's
got
not
family in
all family, or it was
It
family.
was,
Okay,
but they're all
it
visiting,
reminded
some of
me of Ashley, and like so her daughters always have someone with her, and so she ends up having a way bigger crew than
I
than
drive
she.
a Suburban, and it's full a lot.
Can I call
So
you
how
for a
many-
ride? Do you Uber? No.
Yeah, she's gonna
Can
be
you?
riding rides lately. But how many children do you have?
I have 3 kids, 19, 17, and 13.
What? You have a 19-year-old?
I'm like going. Wait, how is that possible?
I thought she
too?
was
Yeah,
like
and I
22.
homeschool them, so it's a lot of work, but it's fun.
So that wow,
That's amazing.
That is awesome.
Okay, you're even
So
more,
again, like
a couple
back
more
to
notches on my friend
I
list.
don't work. Come on,
Right, yeah.
like that is work.
That's why I don't work.
But let me tell you,
It's
you
work.
work, you just don't get a salary, sister. Okay, so also within the city of Quincy, we all know, and if you don't know, it's not a well-paying position. It is for the people and by the people, and it's there to make sure that your voice is heard. So if you are in Ward 3, reach out to Kelly Mays because obviously she is for the people, and you do a great job. And I can't wait to say, are you going to continue? I guess I should ask that before
Well, I just ran, so I'm
Okay.
only 1 year in, so I have 3 more years for sure. And the reason
That's a-
I want
Yeah.
to continue, I mean, I don't know for sure 3 years from now, but in our ward, we've had very high turnover. Like I said, I've only been here 3 years, and I've had 3 people with me. And if no one's been around for a while, nothing really gets done, because if someone suggests fix the street and then it just keeps pushing back,
No one can. Yeah.
no one knows.
Who's your partner in the ward right now?
Ken Holtz?
Okay, and he was just
And he's
recently
new.
appointed too.
Yeah.
So appointed means
Do you know your territory? Just so we can throw it out there real quick.
Oh, it's not easy.
It's wonky.
complicated.
They all are. But
It
you can get
basically
on.
goes from like Broadway North in general up to like 18th, kind of.
So you can get on the Quincy City Government's website to find out who your ward member is. And, of course, Kelly's great for Ward 3, but I do recommend reaching out to your alderman in your ward to have your voice heard. If there are issues, that's your job, right? So if there are street issues or stop signs, or you want feral cats, which is what I got a lot of, which is strange,
Feral
but
cats
it is
are
what
a
it is,
problem.
right? They are.
They are.
So if you have an issue, get a hold of your alderman and let those issues be heard, and then they take those to the city council.
It works a lot
and-
better than commenting on Facebook.
Does sometimes.
Definitely.
I don't know. Kelly, thank you so much for being our guest. I know it was probably not super comfortable, but you were amazing.
You were
and
amazing.
I hope you nothing but the best in the future, and don't ever let anyone coerce you into anything. Yes, sister.
Especially a man.